Football has given us gods and kings, titans of tactics and monuments of muscle. But how many players have ever made the entire world smile? This is the story of the one who did. And if you believe that football at its heart is about joy, then make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you are in exactly the right place. In the sun-drenched, football-obsessed city of Porto Alegre, Brazil, a different kind of story was being written. This wasn't a tale destined for the cold, hard pages of a record book. No, this was a story that would be painted in vibrant strokes of impossible genius, soundtracked by the thunderous roar of adoring crowds, and defined above all else by a smile that could disarm armies and light up the darkest stadium. This was the story of Ronaldo de Assis Moreira, the boy the world would fall in love with simply as Ronaldinho. Born in 1980, he entered a world where football wasn't a sport. It was a religion, the air they breathed. His destiny felt almost pre-written in the stars. His father João had been a professional himself, a player for Cruzeiro. His older brother Roberto was the local hero, a rising star at Gremio. The ball in their home wasn't a toy. It was a family heirloom, a sacred object, a constant bouncing companion. In the dusty streets and the tight, frantic futsal courts of their neighborhood, a tiny Ronaldinho began his apprenticeship. He learned to make the ball an extension of his own soul, a loyal friend that would do anything he asked. He would spend countless hours with it, just him and his dog Bom Bom, lost in a world of his own, practicing tricks that seemed to laugh in the face of physics. The first whispers of his legend came from a local youth game where it said he scored every single goal in a 23-0 victory. Even then, you could just tell. This boy was different. But joy and tragedy so often walk hand in hand. When Ronaldinho was just 8 years old, his world was shattered. His father João, the man who first put a ball at his feet, the man who was building them a new life, suffered a fatal heart attack in the family swimming pool. The loss was a crushing, silent weight on the small family. Yet from that heartbreak, an unbreakable bond was forged between Ronaldinho and his brother. Roberto, whose own bright career was cruelly cut short by injury, made the ultimate sacrifice. He hung up his boots not in defeat, but with a new purpose. He would become his younger brother's agent, his mentor, his protector, his father figure. He saw the fire, the raw, untamed genius in Ronaldinho's eyes, and he dedicated his life to fanning that flame. His father's last, most important piece of advice echoed in their hearts: play with joy. That simple instruction would become the gospel of Ronaldinho's entire career. He followed his brother's path into the Gremio Youth Academy, and it was immediately clear he was no ordinary talent. He was a prodigy, a whirlwind of samba feet, of impossible step-overs, no-look passes that seemed to bend reality, and audacious flicks that were pure, uncut Brazilian cheek. He played with a freedom, an intoxicating rhythm, a ginga, that beautiful, untranslatable idea of sway and joyful movement. He wasn't just playing to win. He was playing to express himself, to create art, to share the happiness that the ball gave him with everyone watching. Then in 1999, during a tense state championship final, the world got its first real glimpse of the magic. Gremio faced their bitter rivals, Internacional, whose defense was commanded by the legendary Dunga, the tough-as-nails, no-nonsense captain of Brazil's 1994 World Cup winning side. A teenage Ronaldinho received the ball, and he didn't shrink. He faced up to the titan of Brazilian football, and with an impudent, breathtaking flick, he scooped the ball over Dunga's head, spun around his bewildered opponent, and collected it on the other side as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The stadium didn't just cheer, it erupted. It was more than a skill. It was a coronation. A new king was coming, and he played by his own divine rules. His unbelievable performances for Gremio and Brazil's youth teams had the giants of Europe circling like sharks. In 2001, he made the leap signing for Paris Saint-Germain. The move was Messi controversial, leaving a sour taste at his boyhood club. But Paris, the city of artists, was a necessary canvas. A new master had just arrived. His time at PSG was an education. The rigid, tactical world of European football sometimes felt like a cage for his improvisational genius. The brilliance was there. Oh, it was there. A dazzling, slaloming solo run against Marseille, a thunderous free kick that nearly tore the net against Lyon. But there were also questions about his discipline, about his love for the Parisian nightlife. He was still learning, still adapting. And in the background, he was preparing for the biggest stage of all, the 2002 World Cup in Japan and South Korea. This was the birth of one of the most fearsome attacking trios in the history of the game, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho, the 3 Rs. While Ronaldo Nazario brought the predatory goals and Rivaldo supplied the brute force and elegance, Ronaldinho was the creative heartbeat, the joyous pulse of the team. The tournament became his global coming-out party, and it was defined by one unforgettable, logic-defying moment of sorcery in the quarter-final against England. Brazil had a free kick. It was 40 yards from goal, way out on the right flank, a cross. Everyone in the stadium, everyone watching around the world, and most importantly, England's hugely experienced goalkeeper, David Seaman, expected a cross into the box. It was the only sensible option. But Ronaldinho didn't do sensible. He glanced up, took a few quick steps, and struck the ball. It didn't float towards the penalty area. Instead, it soared. It climbed into the night sky in a high, wicked looping arc, sailing over the head of the backpedaling, desperately scrambling Seaman before dipping with impossible perfection right under the crossbar. The world stood still. A collective gasp. Was it a shot? Was it a fluke? A mishit cross. To this day, Ronaldinho, with that famous grin, insists he meant it. "I saw he was off his line," he'd say. The mystery only makes the legend richer. It was a goal only he could have dreamed of, let alone executed. Minutes later, in a bizarre twist of fate, he was controversially sent off for a foul, a moment of high drama that meant he would miss the semi-final. But he returned for the final showdown, and as Brazil lifted that famous trophy for a record 5th time, Ronaldinho, the boy from Porto Alegre, was a world champion. He had reached the pinnacle of the sport. But believe it or not, his true masterpiece was yet to be painted. In the summer of 2003, FC Barcelona was a club on its knees. They were drowning in debt, they hadn't won a trophy in years, and they were living in the colossal shadow of their great rivals Real Madrid and their team of Galacticos. They were a club that had forgotten how to smile. They didn't just need a player. They needed a savior. They needed a revolution. They signed Ronaldinho. And from the very moment he walked through the door with that irrepressible grin on his face, everything changed. He didn't just bring his talent, he brought his joy. He brought the fun back. His official unveiling at the Camp Nou wasn't a press conference, it was a party. He was juggling, dancing, beaming. He promised to bring happiness back to the club, and he delivered on that promise in a way nobody could have ever imagined. His home debut was a perfect taste of what was to come. Because of a bizarre scheduling conflict, the match against Sevilla kicked off after midnight. But the fans didn't care. As the clock ticked past 1:30 in the morning, Ronaldinho picked up the ball deep inside his own half. He started to glide. He surged forward, ghosting past 2 opponents like they were statues. As he neared the penalty area, he unleashed a ferocious, swerving rocket that smashed off the underside of the crossbar and flew into the net. The 80,000 fans who had stayed up into the early hours to see their new messiah went absolutely wild. A new dawn had broken over Barcelona. Ronaldinho didn't just play for Barcelona. He transformed them. He was the conductor of an orchestra that played the most beautiful music the world had ever heard, surrounded by incredible talents like Xavi Deco and a hungry Samuel Eto'o. He was simply unstoppable. He produced moments of pure magic every single week. The famous Elastico flick that left world-class defenders tied in knots, the cheeky no-look passes that carved open defenses, the baffling brilliant toe-poke finish against Chelsea in the Champions League. But the absolute zenith of his power, the moment that cemented his legend, came on a cold night in November 2005. At the Santiago Bernabéu, the fortress of Real Madrid. Playing against his club's most hated rivals in their own backyard, in front of their own fans, Ronaldinho delivered a performance for the ages. He scored 2 breathtaking solo goals. Both times he picked up the ball near the halfway line and just ran a force of nature running at a terrified Madrid defense, leaving global superstars like Sergio Ramos and Ivan Helguera in his dust before calmly slotting the ball past Iker Casillas. After his second goal, the impossible happened. The Real Madrid fans, the very people who were supposed to despise him, rose to their feet. In an unprecedented gesture of pure respect for genius, they gave him a standing ovation. It was a moment that transcended rivalry, an acknowledgement that they were witnessing art. If that moment gives you chills, do me a favor and share this story with another football fan who understands what true genius looks like. That season, he led Barcelona to a La Liga and Champions League, double the club's first European crown in 14 years. He was rightly awarded the Ballon d'Or and the FIFA World Player of the Year. He was without any doubt the best player on the planet. But he was more than a player. He became a mentor. When a shy, quiet, prodigiously talented teenager named Lionel Messi was promoted to the first team, it was Ronaldinho who took him under his wing. He saw the future. He would famously tell his teammates, "This kid will be even better than me." And he assisted Messi's very first goal for Barcelona, joyfully hoisting the young Argentinian onto his shoulders in celebration. It was a beautiful, symbolic passing of the torch from one king to the next. Ronaldinho hadn't just saved Barcelona. He had laid the foundations for its greatest ever era. The peak of a mountain is a glorious place, but you cannot live there forever. For Ronaldinho, the descent began almost as quickly as the ascent. The very things that made him great, his carefree spirit, his infectious love for life, began to work against him. The late nights, the parties, a perceived decline in dedication. They started to take their toll. Injuries became more frequent. That explosive burst of pace began to fade. The magic still flickered, but the brilliant, blazing flame was dimming. In 2008, a new, fiercely disciplined coach named Pep Guardiola arrived at Barcelona. He had a vision. He was building a new dynasty around the relentless metronomic efficiency of Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta. In Guardiola's new world order, there was no room for Ronaldinho's freestyle approach, his off-the-cuff brilliance. His departure was inevitable and deeply poignant. The man who had taught Barcelona how to smile again left quietly through the back door. It was a clash of philosophies, the artist versus the system. What do you think, was Guardiola right to move him on for the sake of the team, or should a club always find a place for a once-in-a-generation genius like Ronaldinho? Let me know your honest opinion down in the comments. He moved to AC Milan, and he still showed flashes of the old magic. There were still jaw-dropping assists and wonderful goals, and he helped them win a Serie A title. But he was a different player, a ghost of the force of nature who had conquered the world from Catalonia. So in 2011, he decided to go home. He signed for Flamengo in Brazil, greeted by tens of thousands of ecstatic fans. He wanted to find that joy again. His journey then took him to Atlético Mineiro, a move that would provide one last beautiful redemptive chapter to his incredible career. Many thought he was finished, a fading star going through the motions. But at Mineiro, he found a new purpose. He wasn't the showman anymore. He was the veteran leader, the wise old master orchestrating the play. And in 2013, against all odds, he inspired the team to their first ever Copa Libertadores title, the most prestigious prize in South American football. The image of Ronaldinho on his knees, crying tears of pure joy on the pitch after that final victory, was one of the most powerful of his career. This wasn't the grinning showman of Barcelona. This was a man who had come full circle, finding ultimate redemption and glory on his home continent. It was a triumph that meant just as much to him as any European trophy. His playing days wound down with spells in Mexico and a final brief return to Brazil, a global farewell tour for a star whose light was gracefully fading. He officially retired in 2018, leaving behind a legacy that is simply impossible to quantify with numbers. To judge Ronaldinho by his trophy count or his goal statistics is to miss the point entirely. He will never match the relentless machine-like dominance of Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. But that was never his mission. His legacy isn't written in spreadsheets. It's etched into the hearts of the people who watched him play. He was the living, breathing embodiment of Joga Bonito, the beautiful game. He reminded an entire generation that football at its very core is supposed to be fun. He played with the unbridled, infectious joy of a child in a dusty playground, but he did it on the world's grandest stages. His life after football has had its own strange, sad turns, including a bizarre episode where he was arrested and spent months in a Paraguayan prison over a fake passport. It was a chapter that perhaps showed a certain naivety. A man-child who was a genius inside the white lines, but lost in the complexities of the world outside of them. But that cannot and will not tarnish the memories. When we think of Ronaldinho, we think of the standing ovation in Madrid. We think of the impossible free kick against England. We think of the no-look passes, the elasticos, the samba dances. But most of all, we think of his smile. That wide, toothy, infectious grin that was there when he scored, when he assisted, and even when he made a mistake. It was the smile of a man who was living his dream, who was head over heels in love with the beautiful game and who invited the entire world to share in his happiness. He was an artist, a magician, a revolutionary. He didn't just play football. He made it beautiful. And for that, the world of football will be forever grateful. And that's where this incredible story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What was the one moment in Ronaldinho's career that you will never forget? Did his story resonate with you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite memories, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. Thanks for watching.